Welcome to session number 8 in our servlet class. In the previous session we have discussed about the init parameters and context parameters. Now there is a new concept we are going to discuss. The topic is requestDispatcher. This requestDispatcher is actually an interface, and the requestDispatcher object provides the facility of dispatching the request to another resource. Sometimes, see here, one server can contain multiple servlets, and when we have multiple servlets, sometimes we need to, or multiple servlets need to communicate to each other. For example, one servlet can send the request to another servlet, or otherwise one servlet can add the response of another servlet and then response to the client, something like this. So a server contains more than one server, one servlets, and sometimes multiple servlets need to work together, and in this case the requestDispatcher object is used. The requestDispatcher interface provides facilities to add the request, or facility to dispatch the request from one servlet to another servlet, This is what we are going to now discuss: how to include the response of one servlet into another servlet and how to forward the request. So now here this interface is used to provide the facility for request forwarding and including the response. So this is nothing but some kind of way of servlet collaboration. So what are we going to discuss? We are going to discuss how to achieve the request forwarding and how to include the response of another servlet. So there are two terms, actually there are basically two methods. So let's say methods of requestDispatcher interface. There are two methods. Number one is public void forward, and the forward method has two parameters: servlet request, and the other one is the servlet response. And the next method is the public void. It's a forward. The name of the method is the forward, and the next method is public void include. The include method also has two parameters: servlet request and servlet response. Now what is the meaning of forward method? The forward method forwards a request from one servlet to other servlet, Now it can be other servlet, it can be some JSP file, it can be some HTML file. We can forward the request to any resource. Okay, other resource, let's say. We can forward the request to other resources. And these resources can be either some other servlet, or it can be some JSP file, or it can be some HTML file. And what is the meaning of the other method? Include method. The include method includes the content of a resource, into the response. This means what? Include the content of other resource. Now what can be the other resources? The other resources can be a servlet, it can be some JSP file, or it can be some email file. So consider there are two servlets, servlet 1 and servlet 2. You are requesting servlet 1. But when you request to servlet 1 will include the response of servlet 2 and the response of servlet 1 with addition to response of servlet 2 is going to be sent to the client. Something like this we have the requirement. Let's assume one situation where you should use this requestDispatcher object. So let me discuss here some situation where you should use the requestDispatcher interface object. Imagine you are creating some kind of login application. Let's say you are expecting user to input some username, and here you are expecting to input some password, and here is the login button. What we are expecting the user to click the login button. This is the login button. Now what should happen whenever user clicks the login button? Whenever user clicks the login button, the request goes to one servlet. Whenever user clicks the login button, the request goes to one servlet. And what is the servlet name? The servlet name is the validation servlet. Validation servlet. There is one servlet who is going to authenticate if the username and password is correct or not. Let's say here user is going to enter some username and user is going to enter some password, and this is some HTML file. Maybe you are creating login.html. As soon as you click the button, the request will be sent to which servlet? The login servlet or the validation servlet. The validation servlet is going to check whether the username and password is correct or not. Here it is going to check is valid. Is valid means what? Is the username and password valid? If the username and password is valid, then what to do? Forward the request to another servlet. Okay, forward to another servlet. Forward to another servlet. What to forward? Forward the request to a servlet. See who is getting the first request. The first request is received by the first servlet. Let's say this is the servlet number 1. This one is nothing but the servlet number 1. This is nothing but the servlet number 1. The servlet number 1 gets the request first. When the servlet number 1 gets the request, he will check whether the data entered by the user is valid or not. If the data is valid, then forward this request to another servlet, and that servlet might display some kind of other output. Let's say this is the welcome servlet. This is nothing but the welcome servlet. And the welcome servlet will display some welcome message here. Welcome, whatever is the username, that user is displayed here, and it may have something to show here, maybe some content. This content can be any content. You can expect here some content. Alright, so this is what we can do in the forwarding. So this process is called as the request forwarding. We are forwarding the request from servlet 1 to servlet 2. From servlet 1 to servlet 2. See, we are not requesting directly to the welcome servlet. We are not requesting directly to the welcome servlet. We are first requesting for this servlet. This servlet will do some validations. If everything is fine, it will forward the request to another servlet. But imagine this username and password is not valid. This username and password is not valid. So you need to display some other page. Let's say this is one. It can be a HTML page as well. Not necessary that one servlet should forward the request to other servlet, and one servlet should include the response of other servlet. It can be any resource like any JSP file, servlet, or maybe some HTML file. So what this HTML file will show? The HTML file will show some error message, some sorry. Okay, username and password is not valid, and it should provide some link. Click here to login again. Click here to login. Some link it will provide. If you click the link, what will happen? If you click the link once again, you will be navigated to this login page. Something like this you can do. Once again, user enters the credentials, username, password. It will make the request to the validation servlet. It will decide whether it is valid or not. So what we are doing here, we are include the response of error.html and then show it to the user. This is the request forwarding and request handling. This is nothing but the request handling. So how to use this forward and include method? Forward means what? Forwarding a request from one servlet to other servlet. An include method is used to include the content of other resource. It can be servlet, it can be any JSP file, or it can be any HTML file. So include the response of other servlet into this servlet and then send the response back to the client, something like this. So what are the steps? The steps are, first we need to get the object. There is one method called as get request dispatcher. Get request dispatcher method, it requires one string parameter, okay, string URL. Get request dispatcher method is used to, basically this method is provided by the servlet request. Okay, the get request dispatcher method of servlet request object. Servlet request, you need to remember this. Who provides this method? Servlet request will provide this method. The get request dispatcher method of the servlet request interface returns the object of request dispatcher. Something like this the method we need to use. Public request dispatcher get request dispatcher bracket some string type of URL. And who provides this method? Of course, the servlet request provides the method. And once we get the method, once we get the object of request dispatcher, see something like this you need to write. You need to write something like this. Request dispatcher RD is equal to request dot get request dispatcher. Get request dispatcher bracket, you can write some URL. You can write some URL to which you want to send the request, to which you want to forward the request, or maybe of which you want to include the response. So to this URL either you will forward, or from this URL you will include something. So after that you may need to call the request or forward or include method. Let's say rd dot forward or rd dot include. Okay, rd dot forward, or you can call rd dot include as per the requirement. We will execute one simple example to demonstrate these two methods. So this is nothing but the request dispatch. Now first we are going to see how the include method works. First we are going to see how working of include method, and we are going to see working of forward method. So how this include method works and how the forward method works. Let's see here how these two methods will work. Number one, let's say you have the client. Consider that this is the client, and what the client is going to do? The client is going to make the request. So number one step is the client makes the request. Number one, client makes the request. Now client makes the request to whom? Client makes the request to first servlet. Okay, client makes a request to first servlet. Alright, the client is going to make the request to what? First servlet. Let's say this is the first servlet. This one is the servlet number 1. Servlet 1. Now, what the servlet 1 will do? The servlet 1 will ask for the servlet 2. The servlet 1 will ask the response from the servlet 2. Here, the servlet 1 will call the include method, rd.include method. Whenever we call the rd.include method, the request is forwarded to servlet 2. Okay, whenever we call the rd.include method, what happens? The request is forwarded to servlet 2. Now, it can be servlet 2, it can be HTML, it can be anything. Now, what the servlet 2 is going to do? The servlet 2 is going to create some response. The servlet 2 is going to create some response. This is the response of the servlet 2. This is the response. Now what will happen? This response will be included into servlet 1's response. Okay, it will be included into the servlet 1 response. Because we are calling the include method, right? So this is the servlet response, servlet 1 response, and now this response is sent back to the client. So who is sending the response back to the client? Of course, servlet 1. Of course, the servlet 1 is going to send the response back to the client. This is the request including. Alright, so first step, we make the request to the servlet 1. Second step, servlet 1 will include the servlet 2. This means servlet 1 will request servlet 2. Servlet 2 will create the response, and number 3, the response of servlet 2. The response of servlet 2 is added in servlet 1. And then the servlet response, including the servlet 2 response, will be sent back to the client. This is the workflow of the include. Let me execute one simple example. Assume that we have two servlets. This is the servlet number 1 and this is the servlet number 2. We have two servlets and we have one form. We are going to create one form. This is one form. What is the form? I will tell you. Let me consider that this is the servlet number 1 and this one is the servlet number 2, and this is some kind of form. In this form, assume that this is the electricity bill, some kind of bill generator web page. Okay, what are the electricity company is going to do? Electricity company is going to ask the current reading. It is going to ask the current reading. Alright, it is going to ask the current reading and previous reading. Let's say previous reading, electricity reading. This is the previous reading and this is the current reading. The company is going to ask to input the previous reading and current reading, and after that I am going to click on the calci button. As soon as I click on the calci button, the request will be made to the first servlet. Now what is the first servlet is expected? The first servlet is expected to read the previous reading value and current reading value. Remember, this is some input box. The input box is having some name like P read and C read, previous reading and current reading. So in servlet 1, what we will do? In servlet 1, we will first pass this request to servlet 2. We will first pass this request to servlet 2. Servlet 2 going to calculate the bill. How to calculate the bill? Let's say some calculation like current reading minus previous reading. Current reading minus previous reading is equal to units. How many units are consumed? These units are consumed. What is the price per unit? The price per unit is, let's say, 10 rupees. So what is the amount? Amount is equal to units into 10. And then amount will be ready or not? It will calculate the amount or not? Let's say the amount is, let's say, 500. So this amount is included. Here. That response, whatever servlet 2 is generating, is including here, as well as there will be some lines. What will be the lines? The lines is please pay rupees 500, something like this. Please pay rupees 500, and some button will be there. What will be the button? Pay button. Some pay button will be there. So this will be a new response created. And this new response will be sent to the client. So client will see which page? This page. Client is going to see please pay rupees 500. Some options will be there, and the client will click on the pay button. If he click on the pay button, one more request will be created. Now that request will be handled by another servlet maybe, which will be responsible to complete the payment. Okay, like this. So this is the response. This is the include. What we are going to do? We are going to call the include method here. Why include? Because servlet 1 wants to include the response of servlet 2, and then we want to basically calculate some, maybe do some calculation. Alright. So let's execute this example. What is the step number 1? Let's say create the directory structure or not. let's create the directory structure. I'm going to open the G drive Tomcat folder. Inside the Tomcat folder, web app folder, create the new app number, create the new app number. Inside the app number 4 folder, create one more folder called as the one more folder is nothing but the web INF folder. Inside the web INF folder, classes folder. And inside the classes folder, we need to create two classes, Servlet 1 class and Servlet 2 class. Let's call the first class as the Power 1 Servlet, or let it be simple, Power 1, and this one is the nothing but the Power 2. Any name you can write, why not? Power 1 and Power 2. So let me create a new file, textpad, import java x.servlet.star. Write the class name as Power 1, that extends from what? Generic servlet. Once again we are making use of the generic servlet. Let me copy this .java. I'm going to save this file into the root directory, classes folder of the web application number 4 classes folder. We need to save this file. So let me implement the service method, public void service method, which has the servlet request, request, and another point is servlet response. It throws some kind of exception. It throws some kind of IO exception. So let's throw it IO exception. We need to also import java.io.star. So what is the first step we are going to do here? The first step, we are going to create a requestDispatcher. Request.get requestDispatcher. Now get requestDispatcher for what? Here you need to provide the URL or not. Whenever this service method gets the request from first servlet, we want to ask the second servlet to create the response and give it to me. Alright. So where is the second servlet? The second servlet name is the /power2. This is the URL pattern I'm going to create. Whenever we give request to this URL pattern, Power2 servlet will be loaded. So consider this as a URL pattern, not the servlet name. This is the URL pattern because we need to create some request. And what this method is going to return? This method is going to return requestDispatcher object. RequestDispatcher RD is equal to something. And then we are going to write rd.include. rd.include, pass the request and response. Pass the same request and same response to the second servlet. Second servlet will add his response into this response. And then on the same response we can add something more. On the same response I can add something more. Let's say print writer is equal to what? Response.getWriter. Once again we get the writer. Once we get the writer, I will write writer.println. Let me complete this job. We are not allowed to use the / and / here, but I will use some HTML head title. Okay, some title I will add. Let's say this is some title, Power1 /title /head, and then start the body tag. Once again I will write writer.println bracket. Inside the body tag I will write h1. What is the h1? Bill calculation. H1 is nothing but the bill calculation /h1. After that I will write some HR. I will write, and then I should write here writer.println. One more p tag I am going to write. Please pay the bill on time. After that I may want to add here one button. Writer.println bracket, some include input type is equal to button, value is equal to pay now. That's it. Something like this we are going to write, and we may want to display this all in the center as well. So here we can write some center, and at the end I will write here /center, and then I am going to complete the response. Writer.println bracket, I am going to write /body /html. I am just going to format it. Now there are better ways to do all these things. I am just creating here some kind of approach. So here we have created what? We have created the first servlet. Now what is the error? Class power1 is public, should be declared in a file named power1.java. I think the name of the file is wrong. Let me copy this file once again. Save as power1.java. Additionally, one space was added by mistake. Power1.java. Now it's correct. Now compile this program. Writer spelling is wrong. Writer. One more mistake. Unreported exception, servlet exception. Yes, we need to also handle the servlet exception. I am not interested in the try catch block. I am just avoiding it by declaring it to be thrown. That's it. So the first servlet is ready. The first servlet is the power1, and the power1 servlet is going to send the request to power2. Power2 is going to calculate something, and after calculate something, it is going to display here, and after that this will be displayed, or after that this is going to be displayed. Yes. So let me now go to create one more class. Let's save this as power2.java. One more class I am going to create. Let's make it as power2. Here also we need something like this. We need the writer as well, but at least we don't need this part. Yeah, up till here everything is perfect. Now the second thing, I am going to read the parameters. I am going to read the parameters. Assume that you have created one HTML file. Assume that you have created one HTML file, HTML/HTML, and here we have some head/head, and here we have some title, MACB/title. Here we have some kind of body tag/body tag. I am going to write here some form. Some form I am going to create. Inside this form, what is my requirement? The requirement is I am going to write enter current reading. Current reading is equal to input type is equal to text, name is equal to cread. This is important here. What is the name of this element? The name of the element is the cread. Let's put some break and then ask the previous reading. Previous reading is equal to, let's copy the same input tag. Now it is the pread. You are going to read a value from this field and value from this field. After that we have one button. Input type is equal to button. Input type is equal to button, or you can say input type is equal to submit, and you have to write some value. Value is equal to calculate bill. Value is equal to calculate bill. And whenever you click on the submit, where to send the request, write here one action. Action is equal to power1. This power1 is nothing but this is the URL. Okay. So whenever we click the submit button, the first request goes to where? Power1. Okay. So I am going to write here. I am going to save this file inside the root directory itself. The name of the file is include demo. Include demo.html. Okay. rd include demo. rd include demo. rd include demo.html. This is the name of the file. So we want to read this cread and pread, where we are expecting it inside the power2. Inside the power2 class, I am going to write integer current reading is equal to, how to read, request.get parameter. Request.get parameter of what? Cread. But the problem is this get parameter method returns string. We need to convert this string into what? Integer, because this is the integer variable. So let me write integer dot parseInt of request dot get parameter of current reading. The same statement we are going to repeat for the previous reading. And here the name of the input field is the pread. This is the name of the field. And now we are going to calculate. Now we are going to calculate some amount. So let's say double amount is equal to, calculate like this, current reading minus previous reading. Current reading minus previous reading into some 4.50. Some rate will be there. Assume that. And now what I am writing here, I am writing writer.println bracket sum h1. I am going to write current reading is equal to plus c read plus finish the h1 tag. Similarly, I will write the previous reading. Previous reading is equal to p read. Okay, and the next one is the total amount. Total amount is equal to sum amount. See, the job of this servlet is only to calculate the bill. This servlet is not intended to provide any payment options. Power 1, remember, Power 1 is going to provide the pay button. So Power 1 will send the request to Power 2. Power 2 will calculate the bill, add the response into Power 1, and then some payment options will be displayed. See, remember, right now you have only one payment option. In future, you may have two payment options. So you need to change only in Power 1, because Power 2 will be responsible only for the calculation. Assume like that, small example, but the concept is different. Assume like that. So later, if any changes are made in the calculation of the bill, you need to change only in one servlet, in the Power 2 only. No need to touch the Power 1, no need to touch the payment options, no need to touch anywhere. Maybe some rates are changed, some slabs are changed, some GST is added. Alright. So you need to work only on the Power 2. So Power 2 is completed. I will save and compile this. So see here, directory structure is ready. Both the servlets are ready. The HTML file is also created. Only one point is remaining. We need to map the web.xml file. Okay. So let's create the web.xml file. The root element is the web app/web app. Now how many servlets we have? We have two servlets. So how many servlet tags we need to create? Two servlet tags we need to create. Servlet/servlet. Once again servlet/servlet. Two tags we need to create. This is the first servlet and this is the second servlet. You need to configure and register all the servlet in the web.xml file. So whenever the request is received for a specific URL, the web container will search for the particular servlet if that servlet is available in your application or not. So you need to deploy. You need to deploy your servlet into web app or this web.xml file. So what is the name of the first servlet? The name of the first servlet is Power 1, or let's say P1. P1 is the first servlet. Any servlet name you can write. I am writing the P1. The next servlet name is nothing but the P2. The next servlet name is nothing but the P2. Now whenever request come for the P1 servlet, which class you want to load? I want to load the first class, that is nothing but the Power 1. Servlet-class, name of the servlet is the Power 1 / servlet-class. And whenever the request is arrived for the P2, then load the second class, that is the Power 2. But how to determine the request is coming for the P1 or P2? Based on the URL pattern. So to map the URL pattern, we have servlet mapping /servlet mapping. And how many servlets are there? Two servlets. So we need to map it two times, for first servlet and the second servlet. So let's copy the first servlet name here. Let's copy it once again. This is the first servlet and this is the second servlet. What is the name of the second servlet? P2. Now which is the URL you want to map? URL-pattern. URL-pattern /POW1. This is the first URL. URL-pattern. Copy this and paste here. This is the Power 2. That's it. Save this file web.xml, and you know where to save this file, inside the web.inf. And now we are ready to test this application. I am going to open services.msc, and inside the services.msc I will first stop the server and I will start the server. After starting the server, I will go to the browser http://localhost 8181. This is I think the app number 4, and inside the app number 4 we have the HTML file called as rd-include-demo.html. Press enter. See, the HTML file is ready. Now what is the current reading? The current reading is 20,533. This is the current reading. And what is the previous reading? let's say some 15,000 something. Okay. Now click on the calculate bill. See here, current reading is equal to previous reading is equal to total amount is equal to. Who is printing this information? Servlet number 2. Power 2 is printing this information. And who is printing this information? Servlet 1. Now, what should happen when I click the pay now button? That is a different story. You can handle one more servlet. Okay, whenever the request comes from another servlet, you can just forward it to another servlet or maybe another resource. That is the next story. But response from servlet 2 is added into the servlet 1 and the total response is sent back to the client. Alright, see here in the URL, still the URL pattern shows what? POW1. Internally, power 1 forwarded the request to servlet 2, power 2 and then added the response of power 2 into power 1. So who is responsible for sending the response to the client? Only power 1. Only power 1 is able to see here, only the servlet 1 will send the response to the client. The working flow of forward method is different. The working flow of forward method is different. That we will see in the next part. In this part, we have discussed about the working flow of the include method. This one is the workflow of the include method. Workflow of the include method. So here we are going to stop this part. In the next part, I will discuss the request forwarding, how to use the forward method. Thank you very much.